just thinking about the shooting and how Charlie Kirk's head had, fell to the left and how the blood was spewing out, and then thinking about how Candace Owens said she saw the video from the back and she didn't see any blood, nor was there an exit wound. Somebody gave the explanation that maybe the bullet got lodged in the spinal cord. And then there was also, from the back, maybe just with the angle of the way his body was falling or something, because to say that there's no blood from the back, of course there would be blood. But why wouldn't you see the blood? Is it just the angle of how his body is situated? And then without a exit wound, people are kind of questioning where the bullet came from. So I got a picture of just, anatomy of a neck here. And the way that it looked like it was a straight shot. So if we're going to presume the official narrative that Tyler Robinson's up on the roof and he's looking straight at Charlie Kirk while Charlie Kirk is giving his little speech, if he was to shoot him in the neck, either, severing the vein or the carotid artery, right? You got the jugular vein and the carotid artery right there. If he would have shot there and severed the artery in the vein, and then that's where all the blood is spewing, that doesn't get lodged in the spine. The vein is, right next to the spinal cord, but there's an inch between the jugular and the carotid artery. And then on this side too, you got a vein and an artery as well. So he got shot on the left side of the neck. That's where the blood was spewing, so it does seem like he had cut a main artery or vein. That's why the blood was spewing the way that it was spewing. And it doesn't get lodged in the spinal cord because it had, severed the artery. It would go straight out the back of his neck. If it did get stuck inside the spinal cord, then that would mean that the shot came from the right side, but that doesn't make sense because Charlie Kirk had leaned to the left. So the only two explanations that I could think of that makes sense to me is perhaps the shot did come from the right. Because I kind of think that you could get shot from the front and it could jolt the body, it could sever that vein, and then he just kind of slumps over to the left. It wasn't like the bullet had impacted his body and through his head, the opposite direction or with the direction of the bullet. It seemed like the bullet had hit him, he was stunned, and then he kind of just slightly leaned to the left. But if the bullet came from the right, that would, explain why he had leaned to the left. It was shot from the front. I was willing to believe that you could shoot someone from the front and it didn't throw him back because it went through a bunch of tissue. It didn't hit any bones, but there would be an exit wound. You would have to have an exit wound. And then he fell over to the side. So I was willing to believe that he could have been shot from the front, but if he was shot from the side, then that means it was an exit wound that we saw. The bullet came out of his neck, and then that's where the blood had come from. So that means the bullet hole there would have been an entry wound. There would have been an entry wound in the back of his neck somewhere. Why do I mention the shot from the right? Well, there was that security guard that had his arm tucked underneath his arm, whatever. It looked like he had a gun underneath his arm. You did have a flash, a sort of flash that was up in there. They were talking about vapor trails. You could actually see the line of the bullet because of vapor trails. So where is the bullet? Did they ever find the bullet casing, for the thing? I think it's good to ask questions about all this stuff. You want justice for Charlie Kirk, then get the truth. There should be blood splatter reports, and then, they should have so much science and technology. We should be able to figure this thing out. And definitely release the fucking video. Release the rear video. Release the video from behind Charlie Kirk. There was a video that had shown Charlie Kirk from behind. They had their own video camera right there. And so that camera from behind would either A, see the person, the shooter, at the top of the roof, or that there's an absence of a shooter. And it might even show the bullet, the bullet traveling towards it, or the bullet shooting out from the side. It would just be one more piece of evidence to understand the full truth. We want to know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help us God. There's also Brandsburg v. Hayes says that every man owes the public his evidence. Every man owes the public his evidence. And so, presuming Tyler Robinson goes to trial, we're going to need the evidence. We're going to need the evidence from everybody. And we're going to need to try to figure out, precisely what had happened. Objective justice stands upon objective truth.